Hi, this is MTC Slip, where we want to come together and give you some heart to hearts about our own experiences to help you through your own child loss, or maybe someone that you know, but we definitely want to talk to parents. So, this week, when I was processing how to get into this talk, um, it's kind of a hard subject. I went, oh, the only day I have to record this is Tuesday when I looked at my schedule. And I went in my head mentally, what a week. And the rest of the line is supposed to be, it's Tuesday, Lemon. And that was just super funny to me. And it related back because it goes all the way back to a place we were at right after our first child loss. And so I looked that show back up because I hadn't seen it in about 5 years when we lost our first child. And I started rewatching. And because I'm still going through healing from my surgery last week to fix the endometriosis, I learned, and it came to my attention again, sometimes humor hurts. And that's hard because you think it would be funny all the time, but sometimes it seems like it's not funny, especially when you're trying to laugh and you're hurting your stitches from your surgery. And when you have child loss, it can feel just like having a physical surgery, incision. And sometimes, if you've had child loss and it was very physical, if you're the mom, that it can be relevant both ways, emotionally and physically. And it just brought that back up to me. And remembering back to when we lost our first child, and remembering the deep depth of sadness that you're in. And I literally had an entire box of tissues in the first 24 hours after we were confirmed that there was no heartbeat. I went through the entire box myself. And you don't feel at that time like you know when you're going to come out of the grief and the sadness or anger or despair or wanting to be alone or feeling alone. And sometimes people hurt us and our relationships suffer either because of our expectations or something that they've said, and we can just be miserable and just on the floor sobbing and going through an entire box of tissues and then looking for another one. And you feel like there's nothing you can do, but there is something you can do. And it might be a little bit, and it doesn't have to be organic because that can be expensive. But we can use humor to help our connections with others and heal emotionally and even physically after child loss. And there's brilliant research done on how humor can be healing. And if you just do a quick search to the Mayo Clinic, which I think there are plenty of jokes that could be made on that itself, there's the stress relief behind laughter that they're talking about, and the short-term benefits being stimulation to your organs because you're breathing harder, and all the endorphins you're releasing and relaxing your stress response, and just improving your immune system and relieving pain, which can be huge if you're a mom going through it physically. And improving your mood is the obvious one that we think of. And there's more research about why you should bring humor into the workplace and how it increases productivity. And we know humor is this tool. And sometimes we think that it needs to be spontaneous. And I don't think we think when we're in this despair that it's appropriate, but it has such great benefits, and it can be hard to think that way. So let me just be the first to give you permission that you absolutely do need humor, because it can be hard, and people, and you hate to hear this, say time heals, but if you look at the other research that's out there on how our brain works, the research that I'm going through, there was one article that said that humor plus tragedy, or humor is tragedy plus time, was what they used that quote from Mark Twain, and they went through this study and found that if it's close to what's happened, that our brain lets us, our stress reaction, it lets us not think things are funny when it's too close, but later on it becomes funnier. And I would like to challenge that, because there's other research out that talks about, and it's just brilliant. It's a huge, brilliant study. There's a book, and it's the scientists talking about how our brain uses not necessarily time, but experience to go through what's happened to us and relearn how to handle situations. And I think humor is a tool that we don't think about when we're going through loss, and letting our mind remap how to process what's happened to us. And so if you need permission and you need some steps on how to add humor when it seems so hard in this impossible situation, I want you to think about being funny. And it's not a stutter. I know it could be stutter, but it's not this time. Format, frequency, and friends is what I want you to think about. So I want you to find a format that works for you. Our format that we use most frequently is getting online and looking up a comedian. I have on Facebook and YouTube, I have people I follow. And that way, it's right there right when I need it, when I don't feel like I'm having a great time, it's getting hard. I go find somebody. I love Michael Jr. He was one of the people that I found too. That was great. And sharing with someone is great, because it's so accessible, and that ties into all of the ones we're talking about. And frequency, I want you to find a show, or I want you to think, I'm going to listen every time I get in my car, so that you practice how often you're able to get into this mindset. That way you start to develop a habit, because if we start to develop a habit, we have that tool on the standby, on the ready, for when we don't feel so great. And then sharing with your friends is so important. You're rebuilding a connection. So maybe it's not those people you relied on originally, but it's somebody that you find a connection with, that wants to talk to you. And sometimes people don't know how to talk to you, but if you want to share a comedian, that rebuilds that connection there. I just had somebody to kind of combine all this. I just had somebody talking about how they were having a hard time, and I only knew a little bit of their story. So I just shared a comedian, and it was Shonda Pierce. It was a great little snippet of her life and her comedy all in one. And I didn't know I was sharing her exact story with her through a comedian, because when I got the story back, she told me about how this was her life story too. And I was writing on this week, and it just so happened to line up, and she said, thank you so much. And I was able to connect with her and help her. And I think that's the point of humor. And that was what my husband did for me too when we found out we lost our first child. Was he brought that show to me, and it might have just been exactly what I needed at that point. And since I don't find the show funny anymore, and I was able to pick myself up off the floor, fortunately, I built enough connection with my husband that he is the person that I turn to sometimes. He's the person I connect with and I share things with, and I think that's important to find that person. So, since I don't like the show anymore, I thought I'd share one of his jokes with you because he is the person that is there for me with the humor. And just to put this in practice and share with you what we've said in the steps about being able to find a format that works for you and making sure you build a habit and having someone to share it with. I want to share with you, since you were new friends, where do rainbows, bad rainbows, go? Prism, but it's a light sentence. Keep laughing and remember to share.